The media continues to ignore Citizens United, as I mentioned in the last hour. They're ignoring a lot of stuff. And almost all of the stuff that the media, the corporate media in America is ignoring is the stuff that affects average working people. The stuff that they pay a lot of attention to is the stuff that affects really rich people and big corporations. Because the media in America is pretty much made up of really rich people and big corporations. I mean, it's pretty simple. For example, President Obama, you probably didn't see this as breaking headline news, but President Obama threatened today or yesterday to veto a bill that the Republicans are pushing through the House of Representatives, which the Republicans call the Homebuyers Assistance Act. Well, that sounds nice, doesn't it? A Homebuyers Assistance Act. I want to buy a home. I'd love some assistance. Right. What the Homebuyers Assistance Act does is it basically undoes the Consumer Protection Act and Dodd-Frank. So it deregulates the banksters, and it eliminates the ability of you to hold anybody accountable if they sell you something that blows up on you, that hurts you, that harms you, that kills you. And the president said, I will veto this. The same thing, by the way, is going on right now with student loans. Senator Kelly Ayotte, a Republican from New Hampshire, and Shelley Moore, a Republican from West Virginia, introduced the Student Loan Relief Act of 2015. Isn't it incredible how they name these things? The Republicans have proposed legislation to screw students even worse, and they call it the Student Loan Relief Act, just like they have introduced legislation to screw homeowners even worse, and they call it the Home Buyers Assistance Act. I keep telling you, the only way these guys can get elected is by lying to us. And they keep doing it. And it has, up to now, it has worked very well for them. It's worked very well for them since 1980. Arguably, it's worked well for them since 1968 when Richard Nixon got elected. On a lie. That he had a secret plan to end the Vietnam War after he had just blown up Lyndon Johnson's actual negotiated resolution of the Vietnam War in 1968. Richard Nixon committed treason to become president. As you've all heard this clip. I don't know, maybe you have it. Do you have easy access to it? Might take a second. But, it was only 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe now. It's just a couple of years ago that the LBJ library, a lot of things don't get released until everybody's dead. And so it's been like 40, 50 years, maybe longer than that. Since 1968, it's been, well, I can't do math in my head that fast, but it's been a long time. And Lyndon Johnson, in August of 1968, negotiated an end to the Vietnam War, and he was going to announce it in October. It was going to be the Democratic Party's October surprise to help the vice president, Hubert Humphrey, who was running for president of the United States, get elected. Hey, we ended the war. Because the war was very unpopular. And so Richard Nixon's people contacted Madame Tu and the group in South Vietnam and said, don't go along with the deal. Don't go to Paris and sign the deal that you guys have negotiated and worked out. Don't do it. Instead, wait until after the elections, and I, Richard Nixon, will give you, South Vietnam, a better deal. I'll make you all rich. Everything's going to be cool. So they blew up the deal. And the problem is that Nixon was doing this with the South Vietnamese on telephones that were tapped by the CIA. The CIA got the wiretaps, and they delivered them to Lyndon Johnson, the president of the United States, and said, look at this. Your political opposition is committing treason. And as I point out, these tapes just became public a couple of years ago. And again, were not reported in the corporate media. Oh, we can't have American people thinking that a Republican would commit treason to become president. But when Lyndon Johnson called Everett Dirksen, and the guy, the probably one of the most high integrity Republicans in my lifetime, he was the majority leader in the Senate, the #1 Republican and the #1 senator in the United States. Lyndon Johnson called him up. He might have been the minority leader then. I'm not sure who controlled the Senate. But in any case, he was the head Republican, the most powerful Republican in America. Lyndon Johnson called him up and said, basically, you've got to stop Nixon from doing this. It's treason. Well, don't take it from me. Here's Lyndon Johnson and Everett Dirksen in their own words.
Here's the latest information we got. The agent says that they just talked to the boss in New Mexico. And that he says that you must hold out. Just hold on until after the election. We know what Chew is saying to them out there. Yeah. We're pretty well informed on both ends. Now, I'm reading their hand, Everett. I don't want to get this in the campaign. That's right. And they oughtn't to be doing this. This is treason. I know.
This is treason. And Everett Dirksen says, I know. Right. So that never got into the media. Even though it was widely rumored in 1968, now we know. For a fact, Richard Nixon committed treason to become president of the United States, just as the Ronald Reagan campaign did in 1980 by cutting a deal with the Iranians to hold the hostages so that Jimmy Carter would lose the election. So, you know, if they'll commit treason, they'll certainly lie to students. And this is, you know, Kelly Ayotte and Shelley Moore introducing the Student Loan Relief Act of 2015, which would, this is from Casey Quinlan over at the Center for American Progress's blog, Think Progress. The headline says it all. Republican student loan bill is a handout to the loan industry. It would let borrowers refinance their federal student loans in a private market. Our legislation, says Kelly Ayotte, the Republican from New Hampshire, our legislation would give borrowers flexibility, allowing them to save money by refinancing their student loans the way they would refinance a mortgage. Yeah, remember that in 2007 when every other ad on radio or television was for a company that wanted you to refinance your home? You could take money out of your home. So here she is, and she says, and to better support our younger generation of workers, this bill would allow employers to help qualified employees pay off their student loan debt with pre-tax dollars. Now, that sounds kind of nice, but who's that really benefiting? The banksters. You can give your money to the banksters. We'll make it so you don't have to pay taxes on those dollars before you give them to the banksters, but you still have to give your money to the banksters. What the hell is wrong with saying we're gonna wipe out the student loan debt? We're going to say enough of this. We're going to put an end to this horrible charade. This is amazing. To better understand why, Casey Quinlan writes, to better understand why Republican lawmakers are pushing for this bill, it's important to remember that in 2010, the Affordable Care Act contained a reconciliation bill that meant all student loans would originate with the federal government compared to the old system where 55% of those loans originated with banks. When the bank-based student loan system ended in 2010, most conservatives opposed efforts to change the system, even though it cost far less if the government took on those responsibilities. Well, of course the Republicans opposed it. The government can't be doing anything right. And by the way, the banksters should have the right. We're talking about $1.4 trillion here. The banksters should have the right to skim a couple $100 billion off the top. Thom Hartmann. Well, I won't get into this whole thing, but you know, this is these organizations are still hoping to increase their share of new student loan volume. That would be the banksters. In July, the White House sent a letter to Senator Thad Cochran, Republican from Mississippi, chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, highlighting several problems the administration had with the fiscal year 2016 Labor, Health, and Human Services Education-related agencies appropriations bill. One of those criticisms was of a rider that would benefit nonprofit student loan servicers. We shouldn't even have student loans in this country. You know, there are no student loans in much of the developed world because college is just completely free. We could do that really easily. We would just have to repudiate Reaganism.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And as long as the Republicans control the House and the Senate, good luck with that.